you very much. Can you hear me okay? Is this on? Yeah? Okay. So I like to talk really fast. So if I'm going too fast, just please use your hands and forgive me because my parents made me learn French in school, not Spanish. So now I live in California, and so forgive me for that. But as Nacho said, I'm standing in front of you as somebody who has great passion for leading people and growing teams and organizations. More passion than anything. And my passion for that comes from my love of sports. I always, as a kid, loved playing sports and everything about teams, picking the right people, understanding what people perform best under pressure, what people perform best by themselves, in a team, during the day, at night. I love this. And so I've had a great chance the last few years to really sit back and say, what is great human resources? And why is it changing? And why does it need to change? And I think what you've heard from Sebastian, from Fatima, from Carlos, from Nacho, is I'm going to cover some of the macro trends, and then I'm going to give you some examples of companies today that I see that are doing some really innovative practices to try to win in this new world. Because if you're like me, it's an incredibly frustrating time to be growing an organization. Because there's so much information. The pace of change is incredibly fast. You always feel behind. You feel overloaded. Somebody's calling, hey, did you see my tweet? Did you see my Instagram? I said, no, I haven't talked to my mother in 2 weeks. Why do I want to look at your Twitter? Like, I'm so busy. It's crazy. We're overwhelmed. And our employees are overwhelmed too. And this is something I give a great amount of thought to. So I want to cover really quickly some of the big trends that I see. And again, it's more of a summary. I think Sebastian covered this a lot, as well as Fatima. The first one is that obviously the world is way more transparent than it's ever been. Our employees and the world can see more information about what's happening in a company or what's not happening in a company than ever before. And what's really interesting about this transparency in this new world is that our employees, especially the Generation C, are experiencing the world as consumers, as customers, and they're expecting immediate gratification. Solve my problem. I'm your employee. You need to fix my problem now. Not next week. Not tell me you're going to have a meeting in 3 months and fix the compensation strategy in 2 years. I need you to fix my problem now, and I need you to listen to me, and I need you to understand me. The consumer mentality, immediate gratification, is a big challenge for us as we try to face what is a good people strategy in light of my employees are starting to think differently. This whole sense of reward now, recognition now, is creating a great amount of pressure. Performance management systems, my whole life, have been 1 year anniversary. Now, I don't know who came up with the 1 year anniversary, but no job I've ever done has a 1 year beginning and an end. And I like to know today, tomorrow, how I'm doing. Our employees want immediate feedback right now. Why? Because they can go through the security at the airport and push a smiley face or an unhappy face today. They can give feedback right away. They want feedback right away. So not necessarily immediate gratification. I think they want to know, how's it going? And guess what they're doing? Our employees are giving feedback around their daily experiences every day. I would posture to you that one of the things that I've started to see is the employee today is your marketing department. Your employee today is your public relations department. If you serve a good experience, they will share it right away, and now you've got your employer brand in the marketplace. Expectation of personalization. This is something that I think is incredibly powerful. People want to go to a culture where they can create and shape the culture, especially 30 and younger. The Generation C, I think they want to go and build a culture, not be told what the culture is. And I think what's particularly interesting is that everything, they can customize more and more their own experience. More shopping, more experiences are online. And you can shape what the colors are, what the shapes are, what the things are. You're getting a more personalized experience in many dimensions of your life now. And employees are going to want that from us. They're going to want the experience of working in our organizations to be different for them. I think the one-size solution for this compensation program works for everyone, or this work environment, everyone has to have the same kind of office or cubicle, is not going to work much longer because people want customization. And I'm going to tell you about some companies that are doing interesting things. This next trend is one that I'm finding really interesting. Mercer did a study recently, and they said the average tenure, the time you're working in a company, is declining and declining to the point where it's around 1.8 years, they think, in a few years from now. That on average, your workers will be with you less than 2 years. So I don't know that I believe that. I'm thinking like 3 is the new 5, right? Like it used to be, if you change jobs after 10 years, what's wrong with you? Why did you change your job? Today, it's like you've been in the same company 10 years. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you changing your job? Like 3 is the new 5. But tenure is declining. And so we have to start thinking, if that's the case, how do we build? How do you grow? If you have people that are not going to stay with you 20 years, what does that mean for you and your strategy? And how are you going to treat them differently and shape the organization differently? The other really interesting thing that you're seeing, I'm sure, is the amount of information you have about your employees is much greater than it's ever been. And it's only going to increase. There are more investments in Silicon Valley in talent-related product companies than ever before. Product companies that are doing HR data insight evaluations, new recruiting tools, new performance management tools, new feedback tools, new recognition tools. All kinds of new products that are coming out there to give us more information. And if you think about it, there's maybe 2 professions in the world where we know everything about the employees. One is professional sports, right? We know everything is measured. Who scores more? Who plays better defense? Who gets injured? Who tends to be when the team wins when they're on the field and the team doesn't play so well when they're off the field? Who plays better at night? Who plays better at the day? Who plays better at home? Who plays better on the road? Which teams play better? Which players score more when they're together? Now, what the National Basketball Association did in the United States recently is they put 45 cameras above the basketball courts of every basketball team in the NBA. And they started measuring everything. When LeBron James gets a pass, he usually goes left first. And he takes a dribble. Every time. Or this one player, whenever he gets the ball on the right-hand side, he's going to do a spin move. Now imagine if we started I'm not saying go out and put cameras above all your employees. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is we're going to start to be able to do some really interesting things. And I'll tell you a story in a second of one of the interesting things Hitachi did where they have smart badges. Many of you, I would argue most of you, if you have over 1,000 employees, or maybe even 500, all your employees have smart badges. And some of these allow you to know where they are, where they spend time. Whose desk are your employees spending most of the time with? It's interesting, the kind of insights that we're gathering. This last point on this slide is the search for meaning. This is so important for millennials. And I think it comes from the product of the fact that work and life is merging. We work 24 hours a day. Why? Not because we want to, because we have to, and we can with our phones and our mobile devices. We are always connected. And so I think the battle of, there's home and there's work, it's over. It has to be a blend. It has to be a blend. We used to joke at LinkedIn, it's only a part-time job just when you're awake. I know, it's a bad joke, isn't it? It's a really bad joke. Only the hours you're awake. Some other things that I think are interesting and worth noting. Do you know, when I was younger and we would watch television in my town, and there was maybe 3 television stations, and all the children, we would talk about the same shows at school. We had the same lunch boxes, and we talked about the same thing. Is anybody here watching the same show right now? I'm watching Game of Thrones. I'm watching Downton Abbey. I'm watching Breaking Bad. I'm watching something else. Our sense of shared experience is evaporating. Maybe professional sports is the one thing, and national news, obviously. is the one thing that we all are living a collective experience around. But the one other place where we have a shared experience is the workplace. And I think it's going to be a place where we have an opportunity to create community to replace the sense of loss of community we have at home. In my house, my groceries get delivered. I don't have to go outside my house. My newspaper comes to my front door. I can watch TV, I can get everything I want and never leave my house. I don't have to talk to my neighbors. I don't need my neighbors. I can just do it. Well, think about that in a very, very large scale, that I think the sense of community at home may be changing. And in some countries, in some communities, in some towns, in some parts of the world, it's obviously very different. But we have a chance to really build something really tight inside an organization, have people share the same thing, and have it be a lot more meaningful. This next point, the experience economy. For a generation of talent that wants to feel something, they want an experience. I was visiting with some friends recently who were teaching at a university in Silicon Valley at Stanford, and they said, you know, our students today, they want an adventure, not a job. They want an experience, not a career. Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking, when you think about, oh, my succession plan and my career development, are you building boxes? Are you thinking about experiences? Are you thinking about designing something for a 5-year, 10-year horizon? Or are you thinking about designing something that's going to engage their hearts and minds today? There's no right or wrong answer here, but the fact is things are changing a lot quicker. And as I think you heard Carlos say, that the Hay Group sees exactly what I see, is that the need for organizations to move quickly and move fast is more imperative than ever before. We found at LinkedIn, when we were going from 400 to 1,000 in 1 year, to 2,000 in another year, and then next year to 4,000, we doubled the size of the company in 3 years, every single year. What we found was that what was more important to me was someone knew how to grow than someone who knew a technical skill. The agility of the mind to learn quick and adapt was more important to me. And that's what I started to try to focus on. Okay? And this last point we already talked about, the fact that 24/7 work is creating a great amount of stress for our employees. It's stressful. It's tiring. You know, I was talking to a young organization. There are probably about 25 people. And one of the advantages when you have 25 people in a company and you're very early is you can do whatever you want. And I said, what's your biggest problem? And the founder said, my biggest problem is that I've got my best talent has children, and they're carrying this guilt that they don't have enough time with their children. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing about that? And they said, well, what do you mean, what am I doing about that? I said, well, you just told me your biggest problem is not building your product. Your biggest problem is that your best workers are worried about the time they're spending with their children. Why don't you find a way to have them be here in the office? Have you thought about that? Maybe every employee rotates bringing their kids in. It's a simple thing. He's like, I didn't think about that. Well, why don't you think about that? It's the most important thing to your workers. You will deliver value when their Maslow's hierarchy of needs, their basic needs are being met. So I really believe now is an exciting time for those of us in the talent business. It's probably the most exciting time. And it is one of the scariest times too. Trust me. I spend most of my time talking to human resource leaders around the world, and people are nervous because things are changing so fast. But I want to share with you about 5 or 6 different approaches that organizations are taking. And some of these may work for you. Some of them you may say, that will never work for me. But maybe it'll spark an idea that you can do. The first one is the Hitachi example that I gave you. They looked at the actual patterns of their employees by virtue of the smart badges, and they were able to find insights. What's the one person in this engineering department that everyone seems to be around their desk all the time? Why is that? Do they have free food at their desk? Or are they giving good advice? What's happening there? It's a smoke signal. The answer is not in the data, but the data is showing something I want to understand. Why are they doing that? They found that the engineers who were spending time together in groups having lunch tended to be more happy and enjoying their work more and more productive. That's interesting. So what would that suggest? That might suggest, well, if you're in Silicon Valley, everyone gets free food anyway, but you might want to think about how food and gatherings creates value and experience and connection. People are wanting more and more connection. This next one is a really interesting one. I was at a conference in Miami last week, Miami, Florida, and I met a woman from Mercer, and she's starting her own startup within Mercer. And she's tackling talent management. Now, I don't know how many of you have got a great talent management system. I've built so many that have failed, I lost count. Because none of my employees want to contribute to filling in their profile and putting all this together. I've not seen one that really works at scale. Well, Mercer has built a game. And the game basically is a challenge for anyone who wants to play it that helps assess your abilities in about 15 core areas. And when you finish that game, and it's just like playing, Candy Crush or any of the games that you may want to play on an iPad or a phone. It's on a mobile device, and you play a bunch of games. And when you're finished with the games, it serves you up some information, such as, do you know that people that scored like you tend to be in engineering, or they tend to be in marketing, or they tend to be in human resources, or they tend to be in graphic design? And now we've got a really interesting game that they built. It's a game on the phone, and now they can actually serve it up to individuals or companies to show, you know what? You've got the aptitude and the ability that is exactly what the people who are great in these areas have. Isn't that interesting? So now you've got a game serving you really intelligence, and now it doesn't become like, oh, the company has to go through this talent management process. It's not going to be fun. Now it's something for me. I've got a stake in the game. Just a different approach. Millennials like games. They like solving puzzles, and you can get amazing insights from some of these games and puzzles. All right, the topic of transparency. Anyone here from Pepsi? I don't think so. I didn't see. All right. So when I was running around the world with LinkedIn, one of the companies that we spent time with, we were really interested in what they were doing with recruiting, was Pepsi. Pepsi has thousands of people applying to their company every week. And they were having a problem in keeping up with responding to all the candidates who are applying. So they said, let's try something different. Let's publish how many people applied and where you are in the application process. So we'll give you a ticket number, you go log in, and you can find out where you are. Oh, there are 6,000 people that applied for this job, and only 17 got interviews, and I'm one of the 17 that got an interview. Wow, that's awesome. I've got immediate recognition of where I am in the process, and immediate feedback, and transparency, and I know the timeline. If that's something that's interesting, for them it solved the problem. It required less people, and the candidates were doing self-service and like, wow, we really know where we stand. This next one I think is obviously one that I had a hand in helping create, so I feel pretty strongly about it. But it gets to a point where Nacho mentioned this earlier, which is, I think, in a world where people are changing positions maybe more frequently than in the past, in a world where people want change and experience different, one of the things that we built at LinkedIn was a LinkedIn alumni network, similar to a university. And we gather our alumni. I'm part of the alumni now. We give them all the special employee discounts of special, LinkedIn subscription accounts. We meet about once a month. We share stories, we share experiences, we share what's going on in the world, and we stay close. And LinkedIn, we found some of our people who left were better recruiting and sending us people than when they worked for us. That surprised me. I've worked at places when you quit, you are dead to me like the Godfather. Don't come and talk to me. I never want to see you again. And this is much more an enlightened approach, I think, and it surprised us. And some people have come back and joined LinkedIn. Some people like me are still having a fun, interesting, different journey. But this is a world where everyone has a voice and everyone is touching your brand. And if you're not touching your brand, and that includes your alumni, the alumni is going to create your brand without your input. And you have a great opportunity here. And this is something I'm seeing more and more companies do. You're familiar with a company called Dropbox? They're in San Francisco. Dropbox pioneered something, and LinkedIn stole it a few years later. But Dropbox pioneered Parents at Work Day. Yeah. You've all had Children at Work Day, right? When I was in Singapore with Cisco, we built Children's at Work Day. One of the funniest days of my whole career at Cisco. We had all the kids of all the employees come in, and I said, and it was just for fun, I said, hey, what does your mom do? And the little girl says, well, my mom sits on conference calls all day. And the little boy, what does your dad do? My dad plays golf all day. I said, what's your name, son? You know, it's like, what? And we had fun with that. But think about, they turned it on its head. It's much harder for a millennial or an employee to quit when they're going home and their parents are saying, you're quitting, why? Those people love you. Look at that free food. Are you crazy? And they let you bring your dog to work? How is that going to work? Parents at Work Day. We've never done that before. They turned it on its head. So interesting. Building more community. Building more reason to stay, more connection. Do you know, a lot of people ask me, what was your retention strategy at LinkedIn? How did you keep people at LinkedIn? I said, retention, that's defense. I want offense. My retention strategy was building a great company that people wanted to love to work. That's my retention strategy. And I remember going around the country and going around the world, and I would visit one office one time we visited was Sydney, Australia. And all of you who are human resource leaders know this situation. You're in a room full of employees, and there's one employee, he's got the arm crossed, that says, what are you doing to retain me? And my hair started standing up on the back of my neck. And I said, what am I doing to retain you? I said, I'm building a great company. What are you doing to make me want to keep you here? I'm building a great company. Do you want to join me in that? And then I said, there's a company bulletin board here, and I never see anything from the Sydney office. You're never telling anyone what you're doing here. And then you're complaining to me that I never visit you, but I never hear from you. So why are you trying to, don't create separation. We are together. Don't create separation. We are together in this one. Another really interesting one. And I got to tell you, trying to recruit against this company, Netflix, incredibly frustrating. They're sexy, brand, movie, entertainment, really cool, wow. So Netflix, in the war for talent, came up with a brilliant strategy. And this gets to personalizing the experience of employment. So when I would try to hire, just I assume as many of you do, you say, okay, when you get to the offer, you get, okay, we're going to give you this base salary, and we're going to give you this target bonus plan. But if the company metrics come in like this, and your performance is like this, and it's going to pay 20%, and then we have this equity shares, and if the company stock rises, then you're going to get some equity shares. And then, we pay these extra bonuses, and this costs this much, and then your days off and time off is going to be this, and then holidays too, really good. And then, every Friday we give you free fruit and pizza and beer, that. So this all in is about, $200,000. Netflix changed the game. So your base salary for me is going to be like $150, your bonus is going to be like $30, and then all these other things are going to be worth about $200. Netflix says, we are the greatest company in the world, and we're going to hire the greatest employees in the world. And because we know you're the greatest, we're going to pay you the greatest, and we think your job is worth $200,000. So here's the cash, right here, $200,000. And if you want to buy time off, if you want to buy benefits, if you want to buy more, vacation days, you can buy it. But here's your money. Then I have to go, no, my plan's the same as theirs, but I got a base salary of $140, and the employee just sees $200. That's all they see. Guarantee. And you see, so the employee can customize their compensation. You want to buy shares of the company stock with some of that money? Go right ahead. And so I know what you're thinking, because as soon as I thought, there's no way we could administer this. We don't have the systems. It's not going to work. And everyone's going to have something different. And so I know the head of the person who created that, because she was on my board at LinkedIn and she was on my compensation committee. And she said something really interesting, that whenever the share price for Netflix would go up, guess what the employees would do? They would buy more stock. And then so they would miss it. As soon as it was up, they would get in. And as soon as it would come down, they would get out. And so she said it was incredible. It was a very, very cash-focused, intensive process, but it was a really interesting experiment. But this is something that I think organizations, the world of compensation, is lacking so much creativity. There's a guy, John Radford, who does all the salary surveys for all the technology companies in the US. And I saw John recently. I said, John, tell me the most innovative thing you're seeing in compensation. He's like, I'm not seeing much. I was like, really? All you need is just a little change in thing. The big thing that's in vogue right now, and I don't know how I feel about this in the States right now, is take as much vacation time as you want. Whenever you think you need to take a vacation time, do it. And I know here in a lot of the European nations, there's statutory vacation time. But in the US, you're not required to give any vacation if you don't want to. So when I hear, oh, take as much vacation time as you want, my response is, that's as flexible as my relationship with my boss. If my boss is, you know the worst boss, right? The worst boss is single and no children and loves working. That's the worst boss. Oh no, even worse, they used to do your job. Then it's even worse, right? But the openness to having to do different things because of the competition for talent is driving innovation. Netflix came up with something fascinating. And I don't know that that's genius, but I got to tell you, it messed up the recruiting for my candidates. When they heard that big number, and my numbers were smaller, but in total, I couldn't guarantee it, they were around the same, they would almost always take the guarantee. So I had to sell on something different. I had to sell on culture. I couldn't compete with money, so I had to sell on something different. But that's just an example of customization. Okay, last example, and then I'll wrap up, and then we'll open it up for some discussion. Talent Tribe's an organization that's one of the things that I do right now that I love, is I participate in helping companies building new human resources products. And Talent Tribe came to me one day, the founder, he's Israeli, and he came to me, he's Kobe. He says, Steve, the recruiting, like compensation, is broken. It's just, I created it. That hasn't changed for years. Sure, LinkedIn changed, making it easier to find things, and the internet changed, making it easier to find people and post jobs and so forth. But the power is still in the hands of the recruiter and the company. What if we changed recruiting and put the power in the hands of the candidate? And I said, what do you mean, Kobe? And he says, oh, here's what we should do. He says, what I think we should do is we will get more candidates coming to us if we're a search firm if we say we'll give you 50% of the search fee. And I said, you know what? I don't think candidates care about that money. What candidates want today is they want coaching, they want mentoring, and they want advice. If we build something where we give coaching and advice, they are going to want to come work with us. Well, anyway, we started talking, and said, do you know what's broken about the recruiting model? Is that we have so much information that we should be helping employees more than we are. So what we're doing with Talent Tribe is the same way Netflix has a recommendation engine. And the Netflix recommendation engine works like this. You watch this show, this show, this show, this show. What they first did was they said, okay, if you like these shows, you're going to like this show. Okay? You with me? Now what Netflix has done even smarter is it said, we know that our members like these shows, so we're going to make our own show, and now we don't have to pay the studio, and we're vertically going to integrate, and we're going to make a much bigger margin. Think about this as a candidate. If I can look at your profile and your CV, or whatever information you're going to give me about you, what languages you speak, where you went to school, what age you are, who your friends are, what industries you worked in, what your experiences are, I can go out and find out people like you work here. Is that interesting to you? Would you like to work in places where people who have the similar background to you are amazing? So we're building a recommendation engine. The more information you give about us, the more we're going to show you these are cultures and environments and places and companies and parts of the world where people like you are really happy and love what they do. It's a recommendation engine that should have existed. And we call it the Talent Tribe. And it's putting the power in the hands of me, the candidate. I should love doing that. And what I love about that for all of us as companies is when employees have more choice, it puts pressure on us to be a better company. We can't hide our bad managers anymore like we used to. Because our employees can go, as Fatima said, they can go to Glassdoor and say, this manager's horrible. Don't go to that department. Or this manager's great. They can do that. And so now imagine, and what we're trying to do with Talent Tribe is we're also trying to borrow from Airbnb and make it very stimulating and very beautiful. And give employees GoPros and say, people want to know what it's like to work here, what it's like to feel like they're living here in the shoes. Like when I think about the future of recruiting, I think we're not going to have CVs and we're not going to have LinkedIn profiles. We're going to have a documentary short film about who we are. That's what it's going to be. And the company is going to have to create a movie trailer that's going to get me so excited, I have to work there. It's going to be like really interesting. But how the movie trailer is authentic and how it's going to be real is going to be the challenge. Anyway, here are some examples of some really, I think, interesting ways that some companies are responding to some of the new realities that we're seeing with how fast the world is changing and how the employees are changing. So I guess the last thought I want to leave with you before I hit my final slide is, this is the thing, and I was talking to some of the Vodafone team about this at break. One of the things that I think when we think of a digital world that we forget is that really what a digital world should be providing us is more greater human connection. And as people leaders, I think one of the most important responsibilities we have is to find ways of creating the connection, because when the connections are there, the trust is built, the ideas get exchanged, people believe, they feel a part of something, and innovation happens in those kinds of environments. Going digital because you want to go digital or because you want to be faster than the person sitting next to you is not the right motivation. Winning and using the technology in a way that creates greater human connectivity and personalization, I think, is the way I would think about digital. And I think we need a new language, because when I hear digital, I think cold, lifeless, not human. I want something real. I want to feel really connected to something. And so we've got all these devices, but really the devices should be helping us understand each other better and quicker and faster and build relationships. So anyway, the last thing I want to leave you with here on this slide is really, we own the talent agenda. We own holding our leaders accountable to this. This is, I think, one of the greatest responsibilities and the greatest times to be in the world of human resources that we've ever had. And yes, it's scary because it's changing so fast. But if people create value and we run the people agenda, we have a chance to really create more value than we've ever created before and do some really innovative things here. And so I challenge all of us. This is what gets me awake in the morning and what gets me really excited and what I feel really passionate about. We have a chance to do a greater impact in our organizations. And I think it really starts by listening. And I know it's very fundamental and it may sound really cliche, but I think the managers of the future and the leaders of the future are not the best decision makers. The best leaders of the future are ones that see, you need to talk to this person and you need to go over here because I heard this over here and I heard over there. And a listening strategy is not just an employee survey. It's discussion groups. It's town halls. It's getting your executives in front of teams and having more dialogue actively. It's everything. It's brown bags. You know what a skip level is? Is when you have a leader come in, the boss is out, and you're talking to the employees of the person working for you. You skip a level. It's doing these things more actively. And I'm finding organizations, your strength is the insights and the knowledge that are shared in your organization. And the more we listen, the more insights we have, and the more we create connections, I think, the more your organization can really succeed in the future. So I hope that is a way to sort of tie a thread through a lot of what you heard this morning. And I hope that the next time I come through town and I can hear some of the really innovative and interesting strategies that you've got here. So thank you very, very much.
Any question?
It doesn't have to be a question. It could be a comment or a challenge. Or you've got a meeting in 5 minutes, so you've got to run.
Is going to be any question, or are we going to behave like Spanish?
Yes.
challenge as HR, and it can be, maybe it's common in the rest of the industries, is how to convince our senior our management committee, who may not be in those C-level generation, on the importance of focusing in this transformation. Because what I've encountered, not only in my current company but in other industries, is that you go down to the P&L. You go down to the P&L, and it all goes down to the P&L and to optimization of processes and optimization of jobs. And then here is HR, who comes with, we need to do all this to keep our people motivated and to keep our people engaged. How do we combine these challenges?
Mm-hmm. So there's a number of different examples that I can give you in a number of different ways, because I believe these strategies do go right to the P&L. And I'll give you one at LinkedIn one time. We had a customer that said, hey, this management team, they wanted to build a facility in this town in Poland. They went to the LinkedIn database and they saw there was no talent in that town, and that information changed where they put the new facility. It just fundamentally changed it. And it saved the company a heck of a lot of money. You need to show these victories, and you need to show the wins, and you need to show how it's real. That's what I would do. I would also find my early adopters on the executive team, because there's got to be some who are going to want to be champions, right? What I have an expression: if you want to be sure that a program will fail in a company, make it an HR program. Because people feel like it's punishment. I don't know why we got to this role of like police person, but if we can drive the ideas and help the business leaders take ownership of it, it seems to take flight a little bit more lightly. But I think there's more ways that you're showing value than you may realize by some of the decisions you can make with what your recruiting investment is. And this is where I hope some of the new tools and new systems are going to help us be able to evaluate and measure, right? Like, this is one of the things, like when you're buying a company, the board wants to know, okay, we paid $2 million, $10 million, $5 billion for this company. How do we know that the revenue is going up? Well, how do I measure ideas that are getting exchanged between the old company and the new company? It's a little bit tricky, but we have to be able to tie it, I think, to the bottom line, and I think we're getting better. But there are some good, and maybe someone here has got some examples to help her with some things that you've been able to measure and show that demonstrate how it connects right to the bottom line. Right?
We used to say here at ISDI that there are no stupid managers. The problem is that there is bad incentives for the managers. So if the net present value of resisting is higher than the net present value of transforming, every manager will resist. So if you are, let's say, a media company, and you have a sales manager, and you're paying him a bonus by the number of newspapers he sells, of paper newspapers, he will continue selling paper newspaper despite you claim to the world that you're going to digitize your company. Okay?
We did a study once, and this is those of you that have trouble, like, I need more money for learning and development. Okay, so we did a study at LinkedIn. We had a group in our product department. They wanted to go on a ski trip. They said, Steve, we want you to pay for the bus and the hotel. We'll cover the alcohol. I said, okay, bus, hotel, alcohol. How much is it? So we negotiated. I gave them some money. And they said, we are going to prove to you this was money well spent. 2 weeks later, they showed me a report of all the new Facebook connections and the LinkedIn connections, and how in the whole company, that department that went on the ski trip was closer and more connected, and they showed the product release schedule for the next year, how the timelines were improved from a ski trip with alcohol, right? That's the ultimate. But they actually demonstrated. And I thought that was great. I was like, okay, show me why I should give you the money to go on a ski trip. And they did. It was great. Yes, question.
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. It was very inspiring. I wanted to ask you about one thing I've been listening this morning about people not willing to join big organizations. And well, in your experience, you have been able to create great organizations in terms of number. But it seems to me that talented people need some sort of ownership of the business, ownership of the organization, ownership of what they're doing. Do you think there is a limit in the size of the organizations in terms of above this size, it is impossible to create ownership? Or do you think the model is scalable enough to create great companies?
I don't think, my first reaction to that question is that I don't think the question of size is as relevant, because some big organizations have small offices and a lot of small offices. And I do believe microcultures are a healthy thing, right? But you've heard the expression, you join a company, you quit a boss, right? I think that a lot of times your experience, your day-to-day experience in an organization is shaped more by your manager and the relationship than anything else. That's why if I have $1 to invest, I invest it in my frontline managers being really great, because they are going to shape more day-to-day experiences than anything. So, but I have thought a lot about this question, because I've worked in 50,000 person companies, and then when I joined LinkedIn, it was just a few hundred people. And I really enjoyed the few hundred people because I knew everybody. And then we were 1,000. I'm like, I don't know anyone. And you know what it's like when you're a big company and you meet someone and you recognize them and your eyes are trying to go down to their badge, but you're looking down, but you don't want them to think that you're looking at their pants, but like you're trying to see what's your name, and it's a tricky one. I think what we fought. Here's one of the interesting observations I had when we went from 400 to 4,000 was the belief is a myth that my employees said, we're going to become a big company. Oh gosh, lots of meetings, lots of emails, and lots of hierarchy and all these new levels, and I'm going to feel like I'm just a passive observer in this big blob, right? And we said, well, we don't want that. Do you want that? No. Then why don't say that? Because everyone would say, oh, we're a big company now. Why? Too much email. Okay, stop sending email. What else? Too many meetings. Okay, stop scheduling meetings. What else? And what I found was that what's most important is trust with leadership than anything, no matter what the size. Because if we're running around, and you've all been in those companies, because I've been in them too, here's the values, here's the culture, and then the leaders are not doing it, the executives are not doing what you're saying, it's just going to fail, right? So there's got to be a certain trust and belief. Do you know when I didn't have any learning and development dollars, when we were growing LinkedIn, what I made my executive team do? You are teaching classes. You. And they got in front of the team, and they would come back and go, oh my gosh, who's Shu Yin? She's this amazing superstar in Japan. No one told me about her. I want her on my team. Or they would come back and the finance guy would say, hey, I thought we stopped that process in Australia. The guys are still doing the expense accounts all wrong. You see what I'm saying? Like the intelligence was flowing. But I think it becomes more challenging, and I think you have to actively engage your executives, because people, right or wrong, they put more blame on the CEO, and they attribute more success on the CEO than is fair. And so people have to, the CEOs have to recognize that, and I think the executive team has to recognize you are being watched. You have to over-deliver and get people to believe the bigger that you are. Yeah. Okay, maybe one more?
Yeah.
More question? Or not?
Any other question?
No?
No? No? So, well, thank you very much, Steve. It was a luxury having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, for the wrap-up, I just have one thing to say, which is, for me, there is one thing. If I could take one of what's been said here, is that human resources shouldn't be passive to what is happening right now. Human resources should be in the lead team and should be the one trying to guide the transformation of the company. That's for me the takeout. But probably any of you have a different takeout or want to add any other. Do you want to add something here? Do you want to lead this? So what are you taking out from this day? Any suggestion? What are you taking out? Yeah?
I don't think we don't believe in us, and the top managers don't believe in us as well. So I think so. It's a hard work for everything. It's not possible.
You have to train the dog.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
The point is that if you're passive, you will never.
No, it's not. It's not. I don't think it's passive way, but
bring your boss here next time.
of course. Great.
Any other?
I think Steve's audience is actually, apart from the HR directors, the CEOs of these companies, because I understand that in Spain, that is your struggle. Your struggle is to get in front of your CEO and say, I am extremely valuable. Without me, this company is not going to have any sort of, it's not going to succeed. So please pay attention to me and value my role in this company. And I think someone like Steve, who's very powerful and convincing, if he could get in front of the CEOs, all of your bosses, basically, I think that there could be a big change in Spain, and there has to be, because all of you have such an important, it's critical. But the CEOs still don't, they're not catching it quite yet. They're starting to, but they have a lot of work to go. So maybe Nacho can help us with that, right, Nacho?
But I agree with you. If you cannot bring your boss here, bring Steve to your boss.
That's right. Seriously, yeah. Okay.
Any other conclusion? Around there? No? Steve?
Yeah, I'll just say the one thing that has always worked for me, because I've been in companies where they tried to make me work for the CFO. They said, oh, people's really important to us, but we're going to have you work for the CFO. I go, really? Why? I said, what is the most important driver of value? It's the people. So then the next question is, why are the systems in this company the worst systems? Are the people systems? I don't understand that. We need to invest more. But I think you can't just point to the executive and say, because they don't get it, we're not going to get anywhere. Because you can show victory, you can show wins, and you can show how to do that. And there's a lot more ways of doing that today. So go forth. Thank you so much, everybody.
So thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Sebas. And thank you all for being here. Okay? So, as you know, some of you know, we are trying to develop and master in talent, in digital talent right now. Steve is helping us, and we're doing an international thing. And probably we will call some of you and invite you to be part of this project from the very beginning. We don't want you to be only the alumni of that. We would like you to be the owners of that project. Okay? So thank you very much. Bye.